Welcome, everybody, to episode 7 of QB Room. I'm Jake Santos. He's Jason Forcier. Man, what a weekend it was. 6 teams in the so-called top 25 go down. So we're going to go over and react to how those games may have affected what we did last week when we predicted our conference championships, including Oklahoma and Dillon Gabriel. They went ahead and they're poised now to be the leader in the Big 12 and possibly win a Big 12 championship. Plus, we're going to go ahead and get into our QB Room's top 10. There's some new guys that we're going to be mentioning there. And we're going to set the scene for what is the best game of the weekend. That is Oregon traveling to Washington. And we're going to have some fun at the end here where we discuss sailgating versus tailgating. An all-new episode of QB Room starts right now.
QB Room is sponsored by Auto Blades. Don't wait until your visibility is compromised before changing your wiper blades. Drive safe, clear vision year-round. Built for all weather climates, maximum visibility, and a fast and easy install, Auto Wiper Blades makes windshield wiper blade maintenance simple. Visit autoblades.com for your 100-day test drive now.
All right, what's up, bud? It was a really good weekend, and I think we should start our opening drive here with some Red River Rivalry. OU wins late 34-30. Your boy, Dillon Gabriel, went 23 of 38 for 285 yards and a touchdown, but obviously had that big game-winning drive down the stretch there in the late in the fourth quarter. Also, he ran for 114 yards with another TD on the ground. I just think it was like a really good game, man. Like it was fun. I was thinking about this, and usually we always say over the previous years, is Texas back? And they are. I don't think it's one of those things where like Texas did a Texas thing and all of a sudden, they're not back. I think they're back, but I think more importantly, Oklahoma is relevant. What'd you think?
I would agree. I think a lot of it stemmed over last year, getting blown out too, right? Dillon didn't play in the game. I mean, it's a rivalry game, and it's mid-season, so both teams are typically a form. It's going to be back and forth. I'd agree with you, though. They started off kind of slow, and you got the sense at the very end, whoever has the team last, or whoever has the ball last is going to win. And sure enough, that happened.
Yeah, I had Texas OU under 60, and with about a minute and 5 seconds, I think it was right under a minute.
Good.
It was at 57 or whatever it was. It was at 57, and I was like, "Oh my God, they're going to go down. They're going to kick a field goal." And that's where my mind is, right? I'm thinking, "Oh, I'm going to be 0-2 again to start." It went that way. I didn't win a game in PUP. We'll get to that later on. But yeah, I think when you look at Oklahoma, Brent Venables. He's made some changes. They added more depth, right? They've gotten better last year, like you said, 49-0. They were a sub-500 team. They flipped the switch over there. And so now, currently, they're number 5 in the AP. And realistically, they only have Kansas on the road. That should be that big of a, one of their toughest games going forward. Sure, you have Bedlam, but Oklahoma State isn't the same. So I think Oklahoma, that's going to look pretty good for them going forward.
Yeah, they look good. I think the key is Dillon staying healthy. I mean, he obviously flashed a little Kyler Murray, with all the running, keeping plays alive. He's not a big dude, though, so he's only one hit from their season kind of going under. I think that'd be the key thing to watch the rest of the year for them is if he can stay healthy. I think they'll be the front runners.
All right, let's move on to probably the most entertaining and surprising game at the end of the night. USC going to triple overtime. 43-41 against Arizona, and they were at home. So Caleb Williams, he had a slow night through the air, just 220 yards passing, 1 touchdown. However, he did have the 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground. USC's defense, man, it doesn't look good. Just to mention this, before we get a little more into it, the quarterback they were going up against was in his second start as a true freshman.
Right. From Servite, Orange County.
True freshman, man. Like, come on. The score was 17-0 in the second quarter. And again, the kid for Arizona was Noah Fafita. He threw 5 touchdowns and had 300 yards.
It's a hell of a way coming out party for that kid.
Yeah.
He can sling it. He was fun to watch. It was a fun game. I don't know. You looked at Arizona. I think the lowest point total all year, ironically, was against Stanford, where they squeaked one out 24-21. So they could put up points. Obviously,
Yeah.
Jed Fish, I think, saw something that USC just hasn't figured out how to stop. And maybe a little bit of that, like us against the world. No one expects us to do anything, and they came out, and put them to the test. But you're right. USC's got to figure some stuff out real quick in a hurry. Heading over to South Bend in a few days. They keep winning, but keep going backwards in everyone's opinion. I think in terms of how good they are.
100%. I mean, you can score as much as you want on offense, but if you
Yeah.
can't defend, man, like
Well, it kind of like reminds me a little bit. I mean, interesting enough, you can keep scoring points. They haven't played a team yet that's like good, right? So if you think about LSU, is similar, right? Probably
yes,
really good offense, terrible defense. Have lost to two good teams. So is this the week for USC? We'll see. But it's it's tough, man.
yeah, it's not easy. One of the things that you mentioned about Jed Fish, though, for Arizona, I'm going to call a little
Right.
check with me, hot route, a little change the play up according to our rundown here. In overtime, triple overtime, let me just set the scene. So SC, they went down and they scored in triple overtime. They went first, and now Arizona, they're only going for two in the triple overtime. Your first and second
Mm-hmm.
overtimes are fine. Triple overtime, you start with just one play, and it's a 2-point conversion. SC did what they were supposed to do. They rolled out their quarterback. They kept the ball in his hands, right? Caleb Williams, Heisman front runner, keep the ball in
Right.
that guy's hands, right? Yeah. Jed Fish didn't take note. He ran a toss play to the left.
Yep.
You can't
I didn't get
you
it.
can't do that.
You got to have a run pass option.
You have
It's the
to.
last play of the game.
You have to. Speaking of run pass option, another head scratcher here. Washington State. Cam Ward, 4th and 1 against UCLA. It wasn't a QB draw. It wasn't a run pass option, RPO. It was a QB zone. Shotgun, set hike. He ran straight into a wall. Game over. And last but not least, let's just have fun with this one. This one kind of ruined you in terms of your conference predictions. But what the hell was Mario Cristobal thinking? This is
Take two for him.
this is worse to me than the Notre Dame having 10 guys on the field because you've
You
already
think?
won the
Yeah.
you've already
You
won
want
the
to win.
game.
You're right. You're right. Yeah.
You've already won the game. Kneel the ball. There was 33 seconds on the clock. It was 3rd and 10, and Georgia Tech had no timeouts. No timeouts. Take a knee, bro. They call it the best. They call it the best formation in football for a reason. Victory
Do you know he
formation.
did this?
Yes, it's in
He did
Stanford.
this against Stanford. Yeah.
Yeah.
And almost cost him that game as well a few years back.
Yeah, you can't do that as coaches. So that's kind of our little hot route, little audible from our rundown in our show. You can't do that as coaches, and as you just don't
Not
want
when
to
you're
take them.
making 5 to 10 million plus a year and change the landscape of college football for
I
this
mean, you're
season.
Miami. You're like, I mean, I guess I get it. It's the ACC. You can probably still get through with one win or one loss, but like you had
Mhm.
it, man. Just take a knee. Just take a knee. You mentioned LSU. LSU kept your dream alive of them being in the conference championship and maybe
Didn't look
even winning
good.
it.
It didn't look good early.
Yeah, I'm going to refer to you
Yeah.
a bit on this one. There's some notes there. They won 49-39. It was a cool game against Missouri, and shout out to Missouri. But Brady Cook, he threw 2 picks. Daniels was the one that really showed out. He really did. He kept your dreams alive.
Yeah, he did. Kind of the same thing like ASU Arizona game. Missouri jumped out to a big lead. LSU was sleepwalking and clawed their way back. I think they started to figure out. Obviously, Jaden had a spectacular game,
Yeah.
but it came down to, ironically, the defense showed up towards the end, picked Brady off a couple times, and forced some turnovers. So good for them. I think Missouri's for real. They're good.
I do.
They're definitely going to give the rest of their schedule some challenges. But LSU at least kept my conviction a little bit for this one. I still am holding out hope that they're going to squeak the SEC West out.
We'll see. We will see.
Hey, as long as they score one more point than the other team,
That's all that
matters.
that's all that matters. You mentioned Notre Dame. Right now, it seems like they can only play spoiler. 2 losses on their record. They're not in a conference, but they lose to Louisville, 33-20. They had USC next on their schedule, so maybe they were looking forward to that. Ironically, they're still favored by 3 against USC somehow. But Sam Hartman, he threw 3 picks. Where do you think Notre Dame goes from here moving forward?
It was a big head scratcher. I didn't see it coming. I especially didn't see the performance by Sam Hartman.
Right.
Looked like he saw ghosts out there that day. And it's a bummer, right? Because this is the reason why he went to that school. And the school took him because they didn't think he played mistake-free football.
Yeah.
And to pin it on your fifth-year guy, your transfer, it's obviously there's more to it. You don't lose by 20 points or 50, whatever it was, on one player. But it's how quick does a season turn, right?
Yeah.
Like you are one play away from staying in the national title, and then 2 weeks later, you're completely out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Completely out of it.
It's,
And
yeah.
I mean, now you go see if you can go ruin USC's schedule.
Yeah, that's all they have going for them is trying to be able to play spoiler. You have USC on your schedule. You probably have a couple other ACC opponents on your schedule moving forward. They do play at Clemson. They do play at Clemson and at Stanford.
That's not a game.
Yeah, it's not a game anymore.
Those games are, they'll be on TV, but for no one except Notre Dame fans.
Yeah, exactly.
Jared might be watching. But you know what? I'd be actually, speaking of him, it's like, I wonder what the Notre Dame faithful are thinking about Marcus Freeman right now, right?
That's a good point.
I mean, I'm not saying who cares how the season finishes out, but obviously they expect to compete for national titles. So if he's doesn't have a strong recruiting class, which I don't know where they're at right now, pressure might be building over there too.
I would say the pressure is building. You got the guy you wanted in Sam Hartman. He was the best available free agent in terms of quarterbacks. And like you mentioned, he plays mistake-free football. And one of the reasons why you have a loss isn't his fault, and the other one would be his fault. He threw 3 picks against Louisville. They can go ahead and they can win at home against SC. That's it. I mean, that's your Super Bowl this coming weekend.
Right.
And after that, you don't have anything. You can measure yourself against, the type of roster that Clemson has just to be able to see how you stack up. But realistically, you're not looking at a New Year's Six bowl with 2 losses. And you're probably at most going to Camping World Bowl in Florida or something like that. That's really it. But it's a really good point. It's interesting to know what the Notre Dame faithful would be thinking about going forward here.
Speaking of who woke up.
Yes, who woke up? I mean, I deserve a little.
Bulldogs finally showed up.
Yeah, I wasn't on them. I took Kentucky, and I think what Georgia did was they are who I guess everybody else thought they were. Not me. I didn't. But they are legit. They beat Kentucky, handled Kentucky 51-13. Carson Beck, man, 390 yards, 4 touchdowns. Brock Bowers, I was trying to find a way to see if he should even be mentioned as a Heisman candidate. I don't know. He's not up there in terms of receiving yards, even receptions. He only has, I think, 4 touchdowns, I believe, on the season. He is the best player on the best team, as of right now, the best team in college football. But it's not enough yet. He would have to have a huge 200-something yard game with 3 touchdowns and 10 catches for him to even, climb the ladder in terms of getting in that mention.
I mean, speaking of, they dominated. I think 2 things, on the Brock Bowers note, I mean, there could be an argument that he is the most impactful player in college football. On the offensive side, just mismatch. I mean, you'll see in the NFL, he'll be a top 10 pick, just the way the NFL game's gone. But back to Carson Beck. I mean, he obviously looked like the big-time recruit that, Georgia always seems to get. You're starting to see maybe some of these first-year quarterbacks or first-year starting quarterbacks get more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Alabama's Jalen Monroe looked better. And it's always a head scratch, right? How much is that the quarterback and the comfortability of the offense versus the play calling and the confidence of the coaches, kind of extending the leash. It's like, at what point in the season does that take care of itself? And it's usually around now.
It's usually around now,
They need it, which is important. But it's good to see that, they finally look like a good team.
Whether it's a first year or just somebody who's a transfer coming in, it's typically it takes 5 or 6 games for these guys to feel really comfortable. And it's hard to gauge because, as you mentioned, you're not really playing great teams in the beginning of the year. you're wondering, when are they going to flip the switch? Carson Beck flipped the switch this week.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're going to be, pedal to the metal moving forward here for the Bulldogs, because it's easy for them going forward.
Yeah. Quick audible, though, real quick, is making me think. I saw a comment about Mark Stoops, and I need your take on this.
Okay.
He was quick. He said, it looks like Kirby Smart and the Georgia team bought some good players over there, NIL. And I'm trying to decipher that. How much of that? And obviously, he made a shout out, like, we need our boosters to step up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like it's also kind of a backhanded way of throwing out an excuse. Like, they just had better players. I'm like, but they've always had better players. You just simply got your butt kicked.
Yeah, I think it was more.
What's your thoughts on that?
Listen, if you're Kentucky,
I don't want it to be an excuse. I don't want these coaches using NIL as an excuse.
You can't compete roster wise. You have to out scheme them. So that I don't actually like the comment, because it gives him like a leave, like, oh, we lost because we don't have the same roster. You're never going to have the same roster. That's why Kentucky is a stepping school. Stoops,
even recruiting.
Stoops, you go there, you're going to win. You're going to have 2 losses, 3 losses this year. You're going to be one of the top candidates to get a bigger Power 5 job. And you're probably going to go. Like, if Marcus Freeman is out at Notre Dame, guess who they're calling? They're probably calling Mark Stoops, right? So using that as a comment is, I think it's a cop-out. You're never going to have the same roster. Your boosters are only going to be given money towards Kentucky basketball because they know that they can compete for national champions there, because you're the best team in that conference. Kentucky's never going to be the best team year in and year out in the SEC. They might go to a conference championship game because they had some good luck and some good fortune, and they were probably hoping it was going to be this year. But say they did. Say they went on to still go to an SEC championship game, and say they lose. That's fine. But they are there. They won the East, right? What does that really do for you in recruiting if you're Kentucky? Those guys that you think you now can go ahead and knock on their door and ask to be invited into their home and talk to, those guys are still going to go to Bama, A&M, Texas, and Oklahoma now, who's going in the SEC, because you're still
over tradition and consistency.
Consistent programs. Kentucky, you need to do what you're doing now for another 5 to 10 years to even be considered not a basketball school. And that's the unfortunate truth. It's just the way it is. This is going to lead us into our predictions from last week. All right. So, staying with Kentucky, I had them in the SEC East. That doesn't really look too good. Now they got hammered by Georgia. Sure, they only have 1 loss in the East, but Georgia has the head-to-head. So they needed that in order for them to go. You had Miami in the ACC final. That's still up for debate. ACC takes the top 2. So Louisville can falter. They can get a loss moving forward. I believe Florida State and Miami, they still play each other. So you have a chance there.
Yeah.
I think
all of them.
You have all of them, really. I think the one that really you have a chance for is Wazoo, because the Pac-12 is going to beat up on each other. And this actually got me thinking, was how we hate how the SEC and the ACC come week 11 are playing against Furman and Campbell and some FCS schools late in the season. They only have 8 conference games. The Pac-12, the Big Ten, they have 9. And you brought it up, and I'm starting to look at it. It makes sense for you not to have 9 conference games.
One less time to get beat by your own league.
You're looking at it, and you're like, wait, Wazoo, Washington, SC, like this game of Washington and Oregon coming up, and we'll talk about it later at the end of the show. Loser, you still have a chance, but man, it's a big hit because you're probably going to lose again later on down the road.
Oh, the odds. I mean, I'd love to see some math nerd just look at the odds of, like, if you look back at all the successful years Alabama and Georgia and so have, they had to play one more conference game. Like, does that move 1 or 2 of their championships? Who knows? But you're right. I mean, and more importantly, they're playing FCS type schools, or the lower level. They're not scheduling an out of conference game against, I don't know, and another big Power 5 school.
Yeah. Interesting. It's just something to look at moving forward, especially with what the Big Ten's going to do once they add,
Right.
schools like Oregon, Washington, and SC and UCLA. So yeah, Wazoo went down. You had them in your Pac-12 final. I had Kansas in my Big 12 final. You had Oklahoma, so that's good. It looks like there
Yeah,
could be a
rematch.
rematch
Yeah.
going forward.
Yeah,
So
who
that looks
knows?
good for you. We still have the Big Ten, all four of our teams that we had going through there. So we'll kind of we'll do that each week where we'll just take a look at our predictions, and I'm sure moving forward as we go each week, teams are going to be falling, especially Fresno State, who we thought was going to be representing the group of five.
As soon as
Yeah, hey, you
Michael
mentioned it
King got
though.
hurt.
You
Michael
mentioned it.
King was hurt, and I think that's the biggest difference with these smaller schools is health.
Yeah,
They just don't have the depth. They
right.
got first round picks. They got NFL players. They can compete, but as soon as one guy goes down, the quality of the play goes down, and unfortunately they lost. But
Yeah,
I guess what Tulane's probably back on the top of the board right now.
Tulane and Memphis are there. They're both in the AAC. And then I would still say Air Force technically has a
Right.
chance as they're undefeated. But yeah, Fresno hurt their chances with a loss 24-19 in Laramie, Wyoming. All right, real quick though, just kind of overall view for you in terms of what you kind of took from that wild weekend. You kind of mentioned it to me off the air, how these preseason rankings kind of screw with everybody's mind on how good or weak they really are.
Yeah, I mean the old saying, it's like perception drives reality, right? So the media establishes a perception certain teams are good. Now we're in week 5. We made our guess,
Right.
our picks. Half of them are completely out the door. And so it just really screws stuff up, right? You can have good rankings, and have it for fun like the FCS does.
Mm-hmm.
But I think until they establish some type of format that's similar to the NFL, you really are not going to get the best teams in each conference playing at the end. You're going to get the best teams that the media wants playing at the end.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference there. And that's hard to change because there's a lot of money and everything.
Yeah. And
What do you think?
I think starting next year they do move to 12 teams in the playoff, but I would say that I don't necessarily like the way they're doing the 12 team format. Like there's still technically an automatic bid for a group of 5. The highest ranked non-conference champions still get a shot in there. So it's kind of a weird way to look at it. I like that there's 12. I just don't like the way that they're going about how they get to the 12 teams. But I agree with you. And I had my rant early on in the season. You got to be able to put these teams side by side and offensive yards, efficiency, how many yards they allow on defense. Like that's what you should be doing. And they don't do that.
Yeah, there was this is my biggest pet peeve. It's actually the Oregon State, Washington State rankings right now. We all know Washington State kicked Oregon State's butt a few weeks ago, but it's always like, what have you done for me lately?
Yep.
So what's the better loss, right? But right now, the AP and the media have Oregon State like 5 spots ahead of Washington State, who lost to Wazoo, like pretty handily. And who thinks of that? I mean, I get it; it's just one scenario, but it happens quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you get penalized, obviously, later on the year for a loss. And you also get or you may get less penalized depending on how the rest of the teams that you're playing against are stacking up. Like it's imperfect.
Yeah, like here's one thing too. I'm going to look at two lost teams, which is Notre Dame and LSU. Okay, Notre Dame is 5-2, LSU is 4-2. There's a team which is Missouri. Missouri lost to LSU, but they were winning with 4 minutes left in the game. They're no longer ranked. But if you were to ask me who deserves to be ranked between Notre Dame and Missouri, I'd probably still say Missouri. And it's because honestly, I don't really now I've seen Notre Dame play top 25, what they call top 25 talent. they lost both games.
Mm-hmm.
So, Missouri had their shot. They only lost to LSU, and they were at least winning with 4 minutes left in the game. It should be interesting moving
I mean, even
forward, though.
OU, unranked to start the year. They were
Yeah,
15 or 16 last week, and all of a sudden, they're a good team. They're probably a top 10 team, right? A lot of season left. But you just automatically catapult them into the top 5 on a last-second touchdown
yeah,
to beat Texas.
yeah.
Anyway.
All right, let's move on then to our QB room top 10. It's been since episode 5 that we've done this. Just so you know, previously we started with Jaden Daniels, who was 10. Riley Leonard was 9. McCarthy from Michigan was 8. Hartman was 7. Jordan Travis moved up. He was at number 6. Cam Ward was the new name entered. He went all the way to number 5 after his impressive games that he had earlier on in the season. Bo Nix stayed at 4. Quinn Ewers was at 3. Caleb Williams was at 2 at this point, and then Penix was number 1. So 2 weeks later, I think we have some names that we want to put in there. The guys that I'm thinking may come out, Riley Leonard, and then I'd
Yeah.
say Hartman now. I think Hartman's played his way out of it.
I mean, after that performance, yeah, he can bounce back in, right? If he
Yeah.
USC. I agree with you. I thought the whole week in general was like, if you didn't play, you stayed in the rankings or
Right.
floated up. Everyone that played did not. I mean, there was very few that actually, I would say, did well.
Right.
That was Jaden, and obviously we talk about Dylan jumping back, but it was kind of underwhelming a little bit.
It was a little underwhelming, and I mean, even Washington, when Penix beat Arizona, he didn't even throw a touchdown. So why don't we start with this? Let's just do this in tiers like we did when we first did it. Let's start with our. I think it's easier to do our 1 through 4. I would argue that Caleb Williams should probably move to number 1 right now. You good with that?
Yeah, I mean he found a way to win.
Okay.
If Penix finds a way, or Nix finds a way next week, there could be some movement there. But he's regained the top spot. That was some gutsy play by him last week.
Yeah, so let's swap them. We'll go Williams 1, Penix 2. Ewers, I didn't think Ewers played poorly. He did have 2 interceptions, but
he started off slow.
Yeah,
one of them was a tip. Got the loss, though.
He got the loss.
I mean, it's one of those. It wasn't his fault. I mean, they just scored too soon.
Yeah, I think he could come out of our top 4 though.
Yeah,
my vote would be that Jaden Daniels has put his team on his back, even in losses.
I think we kind of remove losses now because we actually penalized Jaden Daniels, which we're kind of penalizing Quinn Ewers for. But the difference is Daniels is putting video game stats.
He is.
He is. Part of it's because he has to.
Yeah.
I mean, he is playing his way into a top pick in the draft is what he's doing right now. Yeah, let's move him up to 4.
Let's move him up to 4.
Can stay at 3.
Okay, let's go to Nix.
Move Nix up and then put Ewers maybe at 5.
Yeah, let's go from Ewers at 5. And Cam Ward, disappointing game. That was underwhelming. So I have him moving down. I have Jordan Travis moving up.
Yeah, I would say him. McCarthy played, they looked good.
The one thing I'll say about McCarthy is just the team in general is amazing. And it's all under him. So, I mean, yes, they run the ball very well. They don't throw the ball as many times as everybody else does, but they're still very good and efficient. So I would move him up.
I'd like to get Dylan Gabriel in there. He's been flirting on the backside a little bit of our top 10. I think he definitely deserves to be, maybe number 7 or 8. I mean, he could be,
Let's go 7 for Dylan.
I would put him ahead of McCarthy just based on who he's had to play. And obviously, they need him to play good to win.
Yeah.
Where they don't necessarily need McCarthy to play good to win at Michigan.
So that's good.
Yeah.
So we have Williams 1, 2, Penix, 3, Nix, Jaden Daniels 4, Ewers 5, Jordan Travis 6, Dylan Gabriel 7. Can we put Shador at 8? And then we end it with McCarthy and...
I think let's keep McCarthy at 8.
8, okay. Shador at 9?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm okay with Shador at 9.
Okay. I hated it when he went like this to Arizona State. God. Dude, you won, bro. Trot off the field. Like, have a little bit of humbleness to you, would you?
He's a master. Those guys are masters. It's for some reason they're really good at getting you, the viewer, the media, to turn the page on when they play like shit.
Yeah.
Just focus on my wins. There's an art there.
So if we go him at 9, then Cam Ward was 8. Let's go. What about Carson Beck at 10?
I mean, it's
Not
one
yet?
game. He played really, really good. He looked good. It's not enough for me.
Okay.
I've had my eyes on Jackson Dart.
Okay.
But I mean, he played obviously really good last week against LSU. He had a bye, so did they have a bye last week? I think they did.
No, they beat Arkansas. I like Jackson Dart for right now. I do. 12 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, 1,600 yards passing. Yeah, they're 5-1.
I like him more because he's had to play Bama,
Yep.
LSU. He's got A&M still.
Yeah.
Maybe next week, actually. I mean, he's played good competition.
All right, you mentioned it. Our studs of the week. Mine was Drake May. If you've been listening, I've been on this kid and how poorly he's performed over the season. I don't know why people think he's the number 2 quarterback taken behind Caleb Williams. There's plenty of other guys that I think that I would draft ahead of him. But Drake May this past weekend went 33 of 47, 442 yards and 3 touchdowns, tacked on another 55 yards rushing and a touchdown. So if you do the math, he was just 3 yards shy of 500 total yards of offense in a win. So that's a stud performance in my eyes. So that's and again, maybe if he keeps it going, he can get back into our QB top 10. But for right now, he's just a stud of the week in week 6.
Yeah, it's a great pick. It's the first time he's kind of lived up to his billing. I think, like you said, he's got the 6'4", 220 prototypical size. His brother won a national title with the Tar Heels.
Yeah.
So he's got the genes, all this stuff that the scouts like. So good for him. And he's got tougher games ahead. So they're gonna need him to play like that. My stud, we already heard about him, Dylan Gabriel. I mean, it's not hard. There's a lot of studs like we talked about, but like the differentiator is just find a way. 30 seconds, the biggest rivalry, probably one of the biggest games he'll ever play in his life. Mind that they run the table and get to the playoffs this year, but finding a way to get a touchdown at the end to put the Sooners up top. But it was a dual threat performance, right? We saw how good Texas defense was against Alabama, and they had a dual threat quarterback.
Yeah.
So credit to OU staff, but this kid was running around. It's always fun. I'm partial to the little guys that just know how to run around, make plays. It doesn't mean they're going to have a career in the NFL, but it's fun college football to watch.
It is.
You can't get these guys down and they're moving, but he's a stud and he bounced back. I think he was injured last year, and he had a good game, so I'm happy for him. 23-38, 285, 1 touchdown, add another 100 plus yards on the ground, and a TD, and obviously the final TD.
Yeah.
So there's my.
Hey, very good. Shout out to the Mililani grad out there in Hawaii. I saw a post over the weekend how he's done this before. He upset St. John Bosco back when he was in high school. And it's kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of cool to see.
Did he play DJ?
No, he's young. He's older than that. Remember, he went to Central Florida. He went to Central Florida out of high school. He followed the kid that also went to Central Florida out of Hawaii and then transferred to Florida State, the kid that broke his leg. The heck was his name? Little blonde kid. Looks like you, actually. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I like that. Good pick by you. I think what I love about it is I love watching lefties throw. And then he can scramble. He looks like Steve Young. He rocks number 8 out there. He looked like Steve Young running around. So yeah, I like that pick a lot. We're going to move forward now to something that we didn't like, our pup parlays under pressure. Boys and girls, I went 0-4 for the first time this year. I had Notre Dame minus 6.5 at Louisville, mainly because of what I saw Notre Dame do to NC State, and I saw Louisville play NC State and struggle. So I thought Notre Dame would be able to handle them. They did not. Liberty, I forgot, was a Friday or Thursday night game. They should have handled Sam Houston, but they didn't. They only won by, I think, 6. And then Kentucky, that was a bad pick. Shouldn't have messed with Georgia. They were upset. Everybody was taking Kentucky in the points. They handled them very easily. And I had the under for about, 44 minutes of college football until the last minute and a half or whatever. It was at 57 points. So I had the under of 60, and then Dylan Gabriel did his thing and got the dub. So this week, I'm taking Florida State minus 17 and a half versus Syracuse at home. I'm taking the Buffs. Jason, you're not going to like this one. They're favored by 11 and a half points against Stanford. But the reason why I'm taking it is it's a Friday night in Boulder.
The party.
It's a party. The other one I'm debating. I'm debating this one, but I'm probably going to go Iowa plus 10 on the road, mainly because I want Iowa to do well for Penn State so it looks better. I want Iowa to eventually somehow knock off Wisconsin on the road. So I have them plus 10. Don't feel too confident about it, but if there is a road game underdog, then I'm kind of favoring it's Iowa. And then Colorado State at home, 7.5. They are a home underdog against Boise. Colorado State, we know what they can do on offense. I think they can put up points, especially at home. It's one of the last games on Saturday night, so it's an evening home game against Boise plus 7.5. Jason, what do you got?
I'm looking at. I like the Iowa pick. They're 5-1. They're 3-2 against the spread this year.
Yeah,
and they're going to keep it close because that game will probably likely, you said, dictate what do they call it? Is it the West and South now? Or
East and West. So yeah, the West.
That one. So that'll be a good one. I was like you. I mean, I was very confident in my picks this week, and they just let me down big time. The Wazoo game obviously did not fare well. Cam laid an egg. I had them plus 3.5, and they lost to UCLA straight up. Rutgers did cover for me. Obviously, Shiano in a second stint over there. I think obviously there's some toughness, so he's going to play some tough or keep games close.
Yeah,
I think they lost by 9 or 10. I blame you for making me change my mind on Missouri LSU over under. I had over for a hot second, then changed it because I heard the ooh from Jake, and it made me feel a little uncomfortable. And sure enough, I think the over was hit at halftime.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't a bad beat, but it was just, come on, Maryland.
Right. They had it, man.
They had it, and they gave up 17 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And they lost by 20. That one just sucked. So I
that's actually a really bad beat, man. Because it was 19, right?
It was 19.5. Yeah.
Oh my God. They hit 17 unanswered.
I was sitting, I was like, you were saying, oh shit, I'm 0-2. And I'm like, well, I'm looking good right now. And this was after the second quarter, of course. But
yeah.
All right. So I am going to take Rutgers -5 versus the Sparties of Michigan State at home.
Okay.
I like this kid. He played one game. I want him to have the magic. I think Wazoo backs back. I like the over 59 Arizona versus Washington State.
Ooh, I like that.
Over 59. Conversely, we don't know about Riley Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, big. They have a great defense. They got to win. But he does a lot on his legs, which I don't think are going to be very, very much there. So I'm taking the under against NC State 46.5. And then I'm back on the Bama bandwagon. I think
Milroe threw 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think again talking about comfortability in the offense, making the leap. I think they're going to go in big at home, Arkansas, and then everyone will be talking about it again. They're 19.5 point favorites.
Okay, minus 19.5. I got it down. So there you go. Rutgers -5. Wazoo with the over 59. Duke and NC State under 46.5. And Bama covering the 19.5. Just a real quick before we get to the end of the show. I am now 13-11. Jason was at 500, but he drops below, going 11-13 on the season. So those are our season numbers: 13-11 and 11-13. It's not too impressive, really, by both of us. But considering I started out 8-0, I've only won 5 games in 3 weeks. 4 weeks actually. So not impressive. All right, this is going to lead us to our preview of the best game this weekend. Yeah.
We gonna do a lock of the week?
Oh, yes. Good call. We are going to do a lock of the week. So we got some advice from some of our friends after they saw we went 0-4 and 1-3. They said you guys should just join and do combine a little lock of the week. So we're going to go with the over of Kentucky and Missouri. 52.5 points. Kentucky, we know they're going to be able to run the ball pretty well, but Missouri scores. In terms of 52.5 points, we know Vegas kind of is usually right on the dot, but it just seems like one of those games to me that, it could be a 34-37 win. That's easily over 52. Like, I see each team being in the high 20s, mid 30s, high 30s. I don't see it being like a 32-18 win. I don't see that. I think these teams put up points. And so, yeah, we're going to go with the over 52.5. You good with that?
Good with it.
Okay.
Love it.
All right. So we're going to be doing that each week just to be able to boost our records, hopefully, here. All right. Ending the show here with Oregon and Washington preview. It's going to be the best game of the weekend. It's a 12:30 kickoff in Seattle. Washington is favored by only 3 points. Oregon, or the over and under is 67. Real quick, you think that 67 line is good? You like the under or over on that?
I'm not. It wasn't in my picks this week. I will not be surprised if it turns into a defensive match, just because both teams have had 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Game planning. Obviously, it can go the opposite way, but
Sure.
I think people would be surprised by it.
Well,
I'd like to see an offensive fireworks show.
Yeah, I think so. I had the same mindset with OU Texas that you just had here, where they know that there's kind of a lot to lose in this game. So I took the under. I thought they were going to kind of feel each other out for a little while, and it was working for me. Again, 57 points with a minute under a minute to go in the Red River Rivalry. But with this game, I see your point. 67 it's not that huge of a number for these two teams, but I can see themselves feeling each other out and kind of taking it slow in those first quarter and a half to 2 quarters, and maybe you get an under there. So I think everybody's going to go for the over because they see these two offenses. But yeah, I get your point. And speaking on the offenses, just to compare, Washington is first in the country in yards per game, passing yards per game, and receiving yards per game. Oregon, it's kind of odd, they're first in completion percentage. So Bo Nix has completed, or at least their team, Oregon, has completed around 80-something percent. I think it's mid 80s, and that's first in the entire country. They are, though, second in yards per game in the entire country, and they are first in average rush per game. So a little bit of balance, right? You have Oregon and Washington. Washington throws the ball, air attack. They got their 3 receivers that are really good. Oregon, they kind of, balance themselves out on the ground. Oregon, though, their defense is what kind of sticks out to me. They are top 5 in yards allowed. Washington's nowhere to be found in their defensive metrics. Oregon is also second in points per game, right in front of Washington, who's third in points per game. What do you think you're going to be able to see out of this in terms of those two teams, and do you have a winner?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear the stats. I think about like both teams, they're capable of putting up points, but as a coach, you're thinking, is that how I want to win this game? You're like, no, I want to control the line of scrimmage. I want to keep the ball in our hands as long as possible.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that they don't score fast, but the mindset of like the type of play calling, you want to have the ball as long as possible, long sustained drives, because the less time Oregon has the ball or the less time Washington has the ball, and you're playing well, it increases your odds of winning.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out and who executes, obviously along the line of scrimmage better. I'm leaning towards Oregon and Dan Lanning, just drawing up
on the road.
I know it's on the road. They had a tough one though at Texas Tech too, right? I know it's just weird things happen down there, right? So they have a little adversity. Washington hasn't played that yet.
Yeah.
and Bo's been in some big games. So those are the little kind of like, I would say, little nuggets that are making me lean towards the Ducks.
I like it.
How about you?
I agree with you in the fact that I'm interested to see how Michael Penix handles a close game. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
The Arizona game was pretty close, and he didn't throw a touchdown pass. So I'm interested to see. Oregon's a different beast than Arizona. So it's going to be fun to see. I do think Washington's going to pull it out mainly because they're at home. That scene there in Seattle is one of the best scenes in all of college football. But I think Michael Penix is a better quarterback. I think Washington has more firepower on offense, especially with their receivers. The defense is really just going to be asked to just withstand a drive. Maybe can you hold them to a field goal? I don't see too many 3-and-outs in this game. So I don't think a defense is going to be able to win you a ball game here with Washington and Oregon. I go Michael Penix. I think if the better offense wins in this game, and I think UW wins. Yeah.
Do you think he allows the media in for his pregame huddle?
So, okay, real quick,
This
yes.
game?
This should
This
have
is the
been
one I'd actually want to hear.
Sure, but here's the thing that I will say. In today's day and age, and not even today, this year, in previous years, like the last 4 years, the way social media is and the way that these athletic departments and programs, they have these cameras always around them. The difference is letting ABC or ESPN in because their own production, your own production, you can control. Yeah, go ahead, film everything you want, and then I get to have last approval. That's fine, right? I'm good with it. There's enough cameras there anyways. It happens all the time. Whether you let a ESPN or ABC in, that's fine. I think if I were them, yeah, let them all in, man. There's enough cameras there anyways to do it. I think that gets overblown. I would be interested to see what his speech is. I think he has a lot more respect for Washington than he does Colorado. That's for sure. But yeah, I still think Washington's going to win. They'll take the over of 67 points, and I think they probably win by more than 7. I don't think it's going to be that close of a game.
We shall see. Let's talk about this tailgate.
Yeah. All right. So I mentioned it. I've been to Washington. It is one of the coolest scenes in college football, and it's tucked away up in the Northwest. So the diehard college football fans don't really get to see it. In fact, the diehard college football fans believe Tennessee and Ole Miss are, God's gift to tailgating because they think they invented sailgating. So maybe they did at Tennessee because it's right there on a river as well. I've done both. So I thought I'd ask you and give you some thoughts on sailgating versus tailgating, the pros and cons. So real quick, sailgating, it's unique. It's elite. You do feel like you're the cool guy and everyone's looking at you and your friends on the boat. I went over to UW and watched Hawaii, my Rainbow Warriors. I didn't even make it in till about mid of second quarter. The cool thing about it is you're on your own time, right? And normally tailgating, you get up super early. You got to go find a spot. You got to go to the grocery store, get everything right. With sailgating, you're on your own time. You pull up there on Lake Washington, and it's usually overcast. It's like a weird shaped stadium. It's it's not really a horseshoe, but it cool. Looks like it, but it's awesome. But I guess that one thing that I would say is the con is you don't get to go move around. And you don't get to go and interact with everybody else. You're just kind of stuck with everybody on your boat. Sure, you can kind of tie up to some other boats, which we did, but realistically, you're not going around and walking around everywhere. Tailgating is a longer day. You start earlier, which I enjoy. You get to play games, whether it's cornhole, and you throw the pigskin around, and you drink more typically, and you're not stuck. And I think the best example of that, we mentioned it last week's episode, was Oxford. Man, I was looking back at some of my videos that I had, and my God, did you have yourself a great time interacting and mingling with everybody and getting to know their traditions and whatnot. I think that's kind of the cool part about tailgating and being able to feel free to roam around and, visit 2 different teams. Like when I did both Tennessee and Washington. If you're in the Vol Navy and you're on a boat, you're just hanging out with Tennessee people. So it's unique, it's cool, it's fun, but I think you only need to do it once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say tailgating still, takes the cake. But what would you say is a bucket list for you in terms of tailgates that you've heard of? You've already done Oxford, so we know.
I was actually thinking about this. I haven't done a ton, but I did it when Tate was playing at
Yeah.
Michigan. I drove out to East Lansing. That was a fun one.
Okay.
And then also I went to a night game at Iowa. And I
Oh,
never
I've
remember because
heard really good things.
Tate was decapitated by Adrian Claiborne and knocked out of the game. And that guy had like a long NFL career, but that whole scene was pretty cool because I wasn't expecting much.
Yeah.
Right, you're in the middle of cornfields, but like again, there's nothing else to do. So like that was the thing. If I wanted to go do one right now, I'd love to go see Boulder. Maybe this Friday. Let's go check it out.
I'm going.
Fly out. I want to see what it's like. I know it's a party school, so I'm sure they do a great tailgate. I think the one thing that's important with tailgating, though, it's like going to a club in Vegas. It's always great to walk around and check the energy, but you got to have a table. You have to have the spot, and every campus has like prime real estate when it comes to tailgating.
Great point.
So if you can be lucky to have friends, whoever, to have one of those prime locations, you got to do it. You just got to do it. And like that's why we enjoyed Ole Miss, because we had that backstage pass to all those all those tailgates.
It's such a good point. I am going to Boulder for my birthday, actually. Nice. Me and Dre, my wife, we're going to go see our niece out there who's at the school at University of Colorado. They're playing Oregon State. I don't know if it's a night game yet. I'm hoping it's a night game. I'm hoping it's cold. I want to get up early. I want to go drink and just party my ass off like I was back in college. It's going to be a great time. So we'll end our show with that, man. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. If you are listening right now, just be sure to remember to follow us on Instagram and track us down on Spotify, QB Room Podcast. Next week, what I think we're going to do, man, is we're going to give our top 25.
Selection show.
Our own selection show. See you guys.